What's up? Hey chat, this is Crypto Bear. This is the first video of a lot of different series. So first off, I'm still here. I'm still alive. The project's still going. No one's running away. Second, we're still here in the trenches, but you or a lot of new video watchers might ask, what the hell is this? Why are we in the trenches for meme coins? I thought we were. Let me explain, okay? Especially, number one, the meme coin market had kind of just exploded, right? Which kind of brings me to the next question of, there's kind of a psychology of a meme coin, right? There's a psychology in getting rich off of meme coins. See, meme coins are a performance art. And let me kind of share something with you guys. So, this is kind of the psychology of a meme coin, right? Getting rich is a performance art. So that a lot of people don't understand because they're too busy just trying to dump whatever project. If you really study any of the important meme coins that ever kind of had any organic growth or a community around them, right? The big thing about meme coins are they're a performance art, okay? That's the value that a meme coin kind of has, right? To truly get rich off of meme coins, you have to understand the value of them. Meme coins are a postmodern deconstructed satire on traditional finance, okay? What makes a meme coin make it is the inversion of all the pillars of traditional finance, right? So meme coins are a performance art of making money in the most ridiculous way possible. It's literally a big fuck you to the establishment. So think of meme coins as a performance art. It is literally a piece of art. Not the meme coin, not the artwork that goes into it, but the concept of getting rich off of a meme coin in itself is subversive of the establishment, right? So think about it. Decades of bailout and money printing, inflationary policies, everything, big traditional finance has dropped any ground. Big traditional finance, right, is no longer grounded in any sort of fundamentals. Big traditional finance. So think about your boomer tier level of money managers. There is no more grounding in any fundamentals. At this point, everything is distilled until numbers go up. I know there is a trade war. I know there's a lot of people upset and scared when the stock market kind of dries up any liquidity, but I guarantee you money printer will come back on. So when we look at the fundamentals of traditional finance, right now everything's numbers go up. I know the Bitcoiners get a lot of shit for their numbers go up attitude, but the traditional stock market right now is literally nothing but numbers go up. If you were to extrapolate the stock market since 2008, and then you extrapolate it and kind of give it the ratio so it's proportional to the M2 money supply, we never really went anywhere. Growth of the stock market and GDP growth is directly just a measure of M2 money supply creation, right? So if everything's numbers go up, why not cut the traditional middleman, right? Why not cut the traditional middleman if all of traditional finance right now is numbers go up? Just create a thing that basically just takes out any sort of bullshit argument about fundamentals and just replaces them with pumpamentals, right? And a whole numbers go up attitude. So that's kind of where meme coins fit in this niche, right? You change out the idea that there is any sort of real progress in the stock market, because right now everything is about selling hype and making sure that you're highly leveraged as the money creation takes place so that you leverage yourself with that growth in value and then leverage that again against your appreciating value. That's kind of what's really happened in the stock market for a long time, right? So you cut out the middleman of the hype in a silly coin, right? It kind of highlights how disconnected Wall Street has become, how disconnected the concept of an economy, how disconnected the concept that everything is so postmodern, hyper fast, because money creation at the end of the day leads to a way more republic equivalent of disconnected numbers go up, right? So think about it. Meme coins literally take those pumpamentals of numbers go up, make it in a silly thing. It's not official. Like you go to the fucking investment bank and they try to sell you some fucking pension fund. Fuck no, this is a fucking picture of some cat or some dog, and then it goes up astronomical, right? That's the point of meme coins. It goes up astronomical, and then the stupid thing actually does the stupid thing a lot better than the traditional markets do their serious thing that in reality is nothing but a facade of stupid, non-fundamentals hype, right? So if we assume that, right, let's be more efficient at the numbers go up. Keep in mind, there's been so many attempts at making some sort of organic meme coin, right? On Biz, there used to be anons that would create and recreate some sort of meme coin. And it's not about the tokenomics. It's not about the influencer, the shilling, none of that. You have to break down the pillars of traditional finance. What initially makes those big investment banks jump on CNBC and make it really serious, right? You have to break down those traditional pillars of finance, and I'll kind of break those down, right? So for a meme coin to be performance art, the premise needs to be, it is so retarded that it just might work, right? So think about a modified Bell distribution curve, right? You have something that's just way too dumb, right? It's too dumb, way at the opposite end, right? At the other end, you have to be so astronomically brilliant at the top of the distribution curve, right? That it's something completely new, right? So think about any major, Ethereum, for example, when it came out. It was revolutionary because you had a decentralized smart contract platform that was basically a virtual machine that ran anywhere. It was considered pretty revolutionary, pretty brilliant, hard, groundbreaking new tech, and that's why Ethereum kind of went from less than $1 to, where it's at today. It took a lot of on the extreme edge. Where you don't want to be is the mid-tier, dimwit, mid-bell curve distribution meme, right? So this is kind of where you have all of the pump. The demographic is just normies who keep getting rug pulled, right? If you keep getting rug pulled and wrecked in the fucking meme coin casino on pump.fun, you are falling for literal middle of the distribution bell curve, and it is there to wreck you. You're just making that's not even meme coin trading. It is literally, you're just playing a game of musical chairs against way better, faster, more financed players. It's player versus player, and you're just literally showing up to give them money, right? This is where everything fails, the scams, failures to launch. People who think that they're launching something kind of ingenious, and then they end up kind of screwing it up because, how the hell are you going to launch the next Ethereum killer, but you launch it as an ERC20 on Ethereum, right? That's dumb. Now, the real naked zone right here, right? It is so retarded that it just might work. Because remember, if you make it dumb enough, it is basically an inversion of how serious traditional finance, right? So let's break this table down here, right? The pillars of finance. You have TradFi and you have MemeFi. In traditional finance, everything's about prestige. Think about every logo for any sort of investment bank. You literally have some sort of lion or important, wealthy individual on the commercials who walks in. It's all about prestige. It's a fucking mirage. Think about your fucking local Chase Bank. It looks so much nicer on the inside, and they probably don't even have enough cash compared to your local fucking bar, right? So TradFi, they try to sell themselves as prestigious. So you got to invert that in MemeFi, and you got to basically be troll, unserious, the opposite. If traditional finance is some guy in a suit who knows better, MemeFi is some dumb dude in a hoodie who doesn't know anything, and he's leading the fucking charge. See, because the optics of that is, it's making money, it pisses people off, and it's self-fulfilling prophecy. It's funny. It's a performance art against traditional finance. When you look at the fundamentals of TradFi, right? TradFi tries to draw these fucking lines, look at fundamentals, try to understand where the strategy of the reality, it's all fake. It's dumb. It's fake. Most of the traditional finance just relies on hype and money creation. So based on that, forget the fundamentals. Jump straight to the hype. The fundamentals in traditional finance are used to justify why the hype is happening. The reality is just jump straight to the hype. Fuck a fundamental. It's just, oh, this thing is the coolest fucking thing ever since sliced bread. Don't be the over analytical TradFi guy when you're trying to create a psychology of a successful meme coin. See, TradFi thinks about the long term. But the reality of the long term is your money will get devalued into nothingness. Remember, they want you to own nothing and be broke, weak, and unable to really have any sort of self-reliance, right? So the long term doesn't matter, but TradFi tries to sell it as it matters. It's a big, important thing. MemeFi is all about the short term, the right now, YOLO, right? Because you have to focus on the shorter term. It fucking works right now, and that ironically brings more long-term success. TradFi tries so hard to sound serious, right? Keep in mind, I'm over here explaining some long-worded fucking essay about the psychology of a meme coin. It sounds retarded, right? But this same concept in a suit with an old guy talking to you like he knows better than you is literally all traditional finances. It's just people aren't aware of how diluted and out of touch the general markets are. So the pillars of finance sound serious, while the pillars of MemeFi have to sound retarded, right? I mean, yeah. So I went on this long-ranted rant basically to say, yeah, the point of meme coins is meme coins are performance art of making money in the most ridiculous way possible. It's a big fuck you to the financial establishment. Art is technically, it's a subversive art, right? So most projects are low effort or scams fall into what would be considered the midway territory. That's that pump and dump demographic that keeps getting wrecked on fucking, pumped off fun. What you want, right? Like, for example, Doge, early Doge was such a good example of sticking to the pillars of MemeFi, right? There was no marketing. All publicity was really kind of troll, right? They funded a NASCAR sponsorship, so there was a NASCAR car with a picture of Doge on it. They also had a Jamaican bobsled team with the picture of Doge on there so they could go to the Olympics. Those type of things, think about it, are very troll. Could you imagine an investment bank, Son and Sons Investment Bank, and they're on the bobsled team for the Jamaican bobsled team? No. There was no prestige in Doge. It was retarded enough to catch on. See? So kind of where do we go from here, right? Well, as some biz anons have kind of seen, I really think that if meme coins are both a performance art, right? And it's basically how to get rich off of inverting the traditional pillars of finance, right? If meme coins are a performance art, they're also highly, like, the performance art is in getting rich off of meme coins and having a successful project. So the performance art, I want like-minded individuals to kind of make it, right? So that's the idea. I keep seeing that in this last meme coin cycle, nothing but the normie tier crypto Twitter people were making it, right? This used to have some sort of alpha to knowing what was coming down the pipeline. Dude, they missed so much, okay? There was maybe 2 or 3 fucking posts about Apu, for example, before they kept getting destroyed by janitors, man. So where the fuck do we go from here? Well, I want everyone who's kind of a biz anon, who is sort of related to the Monero community, right, to understand the next thing that I think would be a really cool one would be the Monerochan project, right? So I've been in the background. I'm the developer who's kind of deploy the contract to kind of building some of the auxiliary stuff around it. So the idea is those same pillars of meme coinery, right? But we're building hype around actual projects that end up kind of helping the ecosystem, right? I know that everybody in the Monero community loves that we kind of exist in a isolated silo. That hurts liquidity. And I know a lot of people don't care about liquidity, but liquidity is important for an ecosystem to thrive, especially one that relies on payments and one that relies on a real peer-to-peer economy. I believe that Web3 has some of the best and deepest liquidity out of any of the other projects. And the velocity that the liquidity moves makes it very, very economical for large concentrations of liquidity pools and things like that, right? So that out of the way, we need more tooling between Monero and Web3. Monero, just because of the way that the actual cryptocurrency works and the way that it technically, it's so much different than, you think about like curves that Bitcoin and Ethereum use, right? And Monero has a complete different curve. The way that signatures are, it's so much different. So, there's already a very few amount of people who are kind of working on tooling and things like that. But we talk about, for example, atomic swaps between Monero and Ethereum, and there are real ones out there, but we really could improve on having some sort of automatic market making model for peer-to-peer atomic swaps. So think about Uniswap, but token to token, right? Some of these things are really cool, right? What does that have to do with the meme coin, right? Well, I think the meme coin is kind of an avenue to build a lot of this stuff because one, the meme coin is just a meme coin. It follows all of those pillars of, memify, right? Just retarded enough to work. And also it's kind of building hype on its own. It's not a utility thing. But that said, what builds the most hype, in my opinion, imagine a project where it's a literal meme coin that's just mogging from a technicality of creating projects that kind of help a parent coin, right? Like Monero, but it's all being done under the guise of marketing a meme coin. To me, that's funny. It's troll as hell, right? So, for example, the plans of having a Monerochan mining pool that is a mining pool that pays out maybe a Monerochan and it helps secure the Monero network. It's a whole new mining pool, but it's all doing all that work for a literal meme coin, right? The other part of that is that there's, like the atomic swaps and trying to get that working. Although there is an implementation, I think that we really could delve into looking at more of the zero knowledge proofs and also some of the ideas behind like shielded liquidity pools that allow you to kind of create a deposit note using adapter signatures so that your Monero then is kind of locked into a Ethereum smart contract. You would be able to maybe potentially create some middleman liquidity like provisioning things, but basically it would allow for a Uniswap type experience for Monero to Ethereum projects. I think building something like that and having a meme coin be the first one to be able to implement that is really funny. And third, I like the chaos of this place, right? I think that there's a lot of meme coins out there that really had a good community, but they're run by fucking assholes who just dump on everybody, right? I try to launch a lot of this stuff as fair as possible where we just put it on the market, and even then, of course there's snipers and things, but I'm not even a fan of a lot of the anti-whale mechanisms, things like that, right? Launched it on 4chan, and, the project's been surviving so far. Yeah, it's been having ups and downs. Yeah, it's been having some things that are, predictable. But yeah, this is kind of where the project is. There's a lot of cool shit. There's a fucking, there's a, what do you call it? There's an actual marketplace for, there's a marketplace for bricks, for example, that is basically an NFT that represents a locked amount of Monerochan, right? And it's basically sold for Monero only as the initial one, and it has like locking periods and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a fun little project. It's I'm here. I'm not trying to dump on anybody, and really trying to make sure that a lot of the people in the community kind of had an early ability to kind of join in on that, right? Because one, I think a lot of anons really could benefit from being part of a community, having a meme coin attached to it, building cool stuff that self-serves, adding more publicity to it in a way that ends up being, positive because one, value of it goes up, people make money off of it, and then secondary, it can be used as a vehicle for even more promotion, right? The irony being that Monerochan, the meme coin token, has a better chance of getting listed on something like Coinbase in this environment, right? And that kind of brings to the other one. You've got maybe 2 years to make it in the next run, right? Money is power, and power gives you a lot of more options. I love that there's a lot of people out here trying to build things, building it in the trenches, building it in darkness. But the reality is, most anons would be better off if they focused on making a little bit more money so that they can then use that little bit more power to then really take whatever values they have a lot further, right? In reality, being able to be self-reliant to some extent affords you a lot of more options, right? So anyway, that is my extremely long, semi-rambling version of a thesis on why meme coins are performance art, why they're kind of valuable, secondary, how you can actually affect some change, get rich, and also still maintain a community, right? So that's kind of where my mind is at. And I know I bounce around here and there in a lot of things, but remember, I've got a lot of different handles, so it's not just one thing I do, right? But yeah, just wanted to kind of jump on camera, kind of make it obvious of I'm still here, still alive, because a lot of anons, if I go missing, just assume I went MIA. So this is kind of what I've been up to. This is the kind of one of the things I've been up to. What kind of launched, right? And then, for those that are curious, I can give a little bit of a breakdown. Monerochan was 100% launched into the liquidity pool. So even the amount of tokens I bought, I didn't allocate them to myself. I launched a token. I wasn't even one of the first purchases. Forget the snipers and stuff. There's other people purchasing, and then I saw snipers purchasing, so I YOLO bought like 2 ETH worth. It shot up, the liquidity, and then also, a lot of snipers dumped. Literally one of the worst ways from like the VC funded, cabal style meme coins, right? What they're going to do is they're going to launch it, have anti-whale mechanisms, make sure that their snipers are ready. No. And then, so yeah, that's kind of what we're at. They've got some bridging coming to layer twos, especially base chain. I don't think people realize how base chain is really, really going to be like a very productive place for a lot of on-chain activity. It's a layer 2, but it does some sort of roll-ups into Ethereum. And the way that those roll-ups work, it's basically eventually going to be in a trustless, decentralized way with the validators. But more importantly, if you look at the current administration, Coinbase is the front runner to be the cryptocurrency company of the US. There's been so much innovation that's been pushed overseas in the last couple of terms that it really would benefit the current administration to have a front runner winner. Coinbase is like the easiest slam dunk win. They've already got their layer 2. Their SEC lawsuits are dropped. Coinbase wants to launch a bunch of that stuff. It is so obvious. They've been trying to launch their own, onboard everyone on chain since they had some different wallet than the one that exists right now, right? It's very obvious. So built on base chain, and we just bridge the token onto there. Built on base chain, because once they start allowing all the normies in, once they start doing all the marketing, it's going to really be, who is building the most there. And you want to build before everyone and their mom is just trying to out scam each other, right? So yeah. Anyways, this is kind of my cool little fun project that I've been on working on. Eventually we do want to do other stuff like NFT drops to help the art fund kind of self-fund it. right now, everything in traditional markets in the crypto world is on fucking fire, right? Which is the best time to fucking build stuff. So, I want to be in the trenches there with everyone and have some fun at this shit. So, thought I'd jump in and I'll sign off. Bye.